wanted to have a bit of fun here and talk about YUKONG, a character that is sort of slept on and a character that may actually be pretty good. The buffs that she provides are kind of solid, though again, she has some sort of use case that may not be the exact area you need. Today I want to talk about it, break it down, and give you some more kit analysis on this character because I haven't really seen that much talk about it. So today, let's jump into it. If you're new to the channel, like and subscribe, helps out a ton. Let's have some fun with it. So first thing, YUKONG is a 4-star imaginary character. Just that being the first part of it makes her very kind of strong and very good. We have been looking for a 4-star imaginary character, and this one opens it up for us as we already have that. The thing that I also want to mention and make this very clear with everybody, where it should be the first point of this video, that you can get this character for free in 1.2. So it doesn't force you to dive into this banner and go endlessly till you get this character. Remember, there is no guarantee you get YUKONG. There's a guarantee you get Luocha, but nothing for YUKONG. Keep that in mind. That just wait till 1.2, which is only about 3 weeks away, and boom, you get your free copy of YUKONG. We don't know how to at this point. And again, it is also worth mentioning that yes, we don't know when in 1.2 we can actually obtain the character. It could take some time, so it could be the first part or the second part. We're gonna speculate and say maybe the first part because it makes sense, but again, we do not know. So keep that in mind. You may be chased until the end of it. So if you are looking for her early on, again, it could be 6 weeks at that or 3 weeks. We do not know. So there is that. But for this character, she is a pretty cool one, and I wanted to talk about that. YUKONG is an imaginary type character following the path of harmony. Her skills can increase the attack of all allies. Her ultimate can buff her skill and increase the crit rate and crit damage of all allies, as well as dealing damage to a single target enemy. Pretty good. That's a pretty good kit, right? She's a very buff heavy character. She's a pseudo support while looking at some sort of semi DPS in a way, correct? Which I'll explain that in a second, right? First, the traces. YUKONG can resist one debuff application for one time. This effect can be triggered again after a certain number of turns. That's pretty good. For what it is, for crowd control, whatever, that is kind of actually pretty solid for this character. Moving on, when YUKONG is on the field, right, imaginary damage dealt by all allies increases. So, look at other imaginary characters in the game, and you have some sort of aspect of, yeah, I can, kind of buff them. So, Welt's getting a little bit of help here. Again, if you are building that pseudo, or like that full semi, imaginary team with some sort of, where's Silverwolf? I'm blind, boys. Okay, let's just say Silverwolf exists. Let's put it there too. There you go, right? Some sort of pseudo team like that, just talking out loud, right? You can get through your entire purpose with what it is with imaginary, so that is there. But yeah, she buffs that, so keep that in mind. And then again, as time progresses, as more imaginary characters release, depending on if they're skill efficient or not, she might be very good for that, which she is, if you will argue, a skill efficient character, because you have to swap back and forth between her basic attack and her skill, which I will explain in a second here. But again, it looks like, she has some use case, and her buffs, though they don't last too long, they are pretty good. But let me explain, all right? When Roaring Bowstring is active, YUKONG regenerates additional energy every time an ally takes action. Pretty simple, and again, it'll make sense in a second here, but with basic attack, deals imaginary damage to a target enemy. This is where it explains it, and this is what you have to understand. Obtains 2 stacks of Roaring Bowstring, max 2 stacks, so keep that in mind. When Roaring Bowstring is active, the attack of all allies increases, okay? And every time an ally's turn ends, YUKONG loses 1 stack of Roaring Bowstring. YUKONG will not lose Roaring Bowstring on the turn she uses her skill. Simple as that. That's how it works, okay? Now, the thing is, as you can kind of understand, in what the capacity is with this kit, she has to go first. She has to be able to use that buff first, and the people or the allies afterwards of her skill usage attack, that's when they'll get this attack increase. That's what they're going to get. Once they attack after her skill has been used, they will get that attack increase. So that's why the community has been throwing up that, we need to tune this character for speed, because again, you want to go first in order to get those buffs. Though again, we'll see how that actually turns, because we're wondering 1 or 2 things when the character releases. Theoretically, if you let her go at the end and then afterwards the character's attack, what happens then? Where we're all thinking this through, so we'll see if speed tuning really is necessary, which again, this is why she's not that good for early game, because you're not really speed tuning that much said characters at that point, right? As time progresses, that's more so the problem and the thing you're chasing, but not really that more so early on, correct? So again, that is one thing. So that's how it works, and you can kind of see here in comparison to other, again, buff characters, right? So let's say we're talking about characters again, like, again, Bronya is a bad example, but, let's ignore Bronya. So someone like Asta, someone like, Again, I suck at using this. It's in alphabetical order, but it doesn't process in my brain. But Asta and Tingyun, two very good buff characters, right? And their buffs may last longer than what she has. Her buffs can expire very fast. Just as soon as the ally uses it, basically her buff expired. That's it, right? And then now you have to go back into the capacity of getting that buff back, which, if you look at her talent, which I'll show you in a second, that also will explain why it's not a skill spam. Plus, you don't want that. You don't want a skill gobbling character, right? Which I'll explain also. But ultimate. If Roaring Bowstring is active, when Yukong uses her ultimate, the crit rate and crit damage of all allies will increase, which is very good. At the time, she deals imaginary damage to a single target enemy. Okay, now the talent. This is why I'm talking about she's going to have to balance both sides of it, where she uses the skill, but she also uses basic attack. Basic attack deals additional damage and increases the toughness, reducing damage of her current attacks. This effect can be triggered again after a set number of turns. So she's going to actually be a very solid and very good break effect character also. So you got to keep that in mind, that she will be that on that status, and that's why they say she's some sort of sub DPS character because of her talent, because of what she can do. That is there, correct? But you have to also look at it for what her buffs are. Yes, they're not going to last too long. They're going to be pretty weird. And people want to test. There's a lot of testing that wants to happen or needs to happen when this character releases, because imagine you just go into some sort of capacity of you're just ult spamming constantly. What happens then? What happens in that capacity of it? Because that could be really good. Constant uptime on those crit rate and crit damage buffs. How is that going to work? Go for energy recharge, which some of her kit kind of has that in a capacity, right? So again, when Roaring Bowstring is active, Yukong regenerates additional energy every time an ally takes action. So there is so much that this character can do, and it just requires building, not built, but being built. So we do wonder how everything approaches to that. But for what it is, she's good. Yes. Now again, that's relatively speaking. Maybe right now she's not going to be the best because, again, we don't know exactly how she operates. And yes, the buffs kind of elapse. They go by pretty fast. But for some of the characters in the game, it will be pretty good. Though, again, it may not compete with some of the top healers or top, support characters that do exist. But I do think that, there is something to look forward to in this character. And again, it's also worth mentioning, she's really, I would say, Eidolon heavy. If you can get Eidolons for her, she'll become way better. But at a free-to-play stat point at 0, she's not going to shine as much. Okay, her Eidolons are very strong, and some of them can really help you. So if it's worth it for you to dive into this banner, because you're going for the Wocha, and you do pull like 1 or 2 copies of her, and then you get a free copy and whatever over time, she will get better. And definitely with Eidolons, this character can shine. But again, I'm not encouraging you to dive into this banner for those. I'm just saying that yes, she is kind of Eidolon, not like must-haves, but it helps. It really does. So do keep that in mind before this character, for what she is. I do think she has a lot of kind of play, though again, we'll have to see. That this requires a lot of testing, so I do want to at least alert you that before, if you want to invest in the character, just see what the community opinion is and how the character kind of operates and how everything works, and if the skills, as we are kind of crafting in our brains, how that operates, are those actually going to work, and are those going to be reliable and constant with the uptime and everything, and the ability to at least see those buffs last, and her speed tuning and everything, and building her with break effect and how that's going to work. But for what she is, I think that there is potential. Though again, we do have a free copy coming over in 1.2, so I wouldn't really recommend you dive into the banner. But again, if you are a beluga, a dolphin, or whatever, and you think getting some Eidolons for her is worth it, hey, be my guest, do that, and have a blast. But for what it is, on some synergies, she can actually do pretty good. Buffing both imaginary, and then again, being pretty good for Zila or Jingyuan, or building some sort of DPS team off of her support. It might actually work, so do recommend that. Again, I want to see how the character is when she releases. Again, building her will be pretty fun. You build her in many ways. Energy recharge and just go full on, just spamming ultimates, how that's going to operate. She might actually be pretty solid, but I do want to see, as time progresses, how she releases, and over time as we get more imaginary characters, what happens to her kit. That is what I do wonder. So with it, catch you in the next one. Have fun, stay safe, peace, and enjoy. That's been it for me. Quick little topic here just to alert you, but you let me know what you think.